Coming up on today's episode, SpaceX gets ready to blow up a tank, Sony stuns the world with an EV at CES, and NASA may have found another Earth. Let's get ludicrous. Hey there, and welcome to Our Ludicrous Future. This is the podcast where we talk about all the cool future stuff happening today that will make tomorrow totally bonkers. I'm Joe Scott from the Answers with Joe YouTube channel. With me is Tim Dodd.
It's me, Tim Dodd, the everyday astronaut from space, or not. And with us is Ben Sullins.
Oh, what's up, guys? It's Ben Sullins from Teslanomics. And Tim, I am the one that is tired today, unlike, because I was driving back from CES last night and got home at 4 a.m. So coming to you live. It's a good time
to be driving.
Alive from not a car, but the internet. Yes.
And we also have, don't forget, we also have our patrons listening in our Discord channel as well. Hi, guys.
What's
Good
up?
morning. If you guys want to listen into our live shows, be sure and head on over to patreon.com/OurLudicrousFuture and join our chat while we talk about all the crazy ludicrous things. Yeah.
What are we starting with today?
Well, you survived CES. That's a good thing, right?
Barely. Well, we'll see. I was like OCD about hand sanitizing and, drinking lots of water and avoiding people as much as I could, which was very difficult to do.
I feel like you're good at avoiding people.
I'm a people person.
That's my everyday.
Yeah. Everyday avoiding people or everyday astronauting?
Well,
one good way to avoid people is to go to space.
So speaking of avoiding people, or how about people avoiding something? How about that? Boca Chica's getting ready to close down the road and not have people go anywhere near the beach because SpaceX is preparing to probably, we think, blow something up. Nice. So you guys remember how just recently, or when was that, November or whatever, SpaceX blew up the Mark 1 prototype, the Starship prototype, and they pressure tested it and they blew the top off. And now SpaceX is building, this is a video from Boca Chica gal, which is Mary down in Boca Chica, who's been of course, she's with NASA Spaceflight. She's just been doing the best job recording and doing all the stuff. They are prepping this baby. This is a new tank using all the new welding techniques that they've been talking about, that Elon was talking about on Twitter last week. The new bulkheads that they were showing off. Remember how he was staying up late watching them build these bulkheads, the top domes and stuff. And now they're getting ready to pressure test this. So this is just a test, we believe. But look at that. So it's a little UFO thing, but it's going to be enough to really test all the different types of seams, all the different types of welds. And you can tell it's still a little bit wrinklier than I kind of thought it would be for a more advanced prototype. But you can definitely tell.
They made a tent.
Another tent, Elon. But it does look a lot better than the Mark 1 prototype. But it's still kind of more wrinkly and dinged up. And what do you guys think of this? I mean,
it looks like it's about to blow already. It's all swollen.
Now, I love popcorn, so this just makes me hungry, the way this thing looks. Like it's ready. This is some Jiffy Pop classic right here.
Yeah, it is something. I mean, I just was expecting these, like, you can see the wrinkles in the reflection of the crane and stuff here in the video. You guys definitely, if you don't know what I'm talking about, if you're just listening, you should probably check out, go to NASA Spaceflight's YouTube account. You can see this video they posted from Boca Chica gal, and you can see it really good. It looks. Oh, they're starting to look better. Maybe they're cleaning it up there. Look at that.
Or they're
kind of better at night. Everything looks better at night. But yeah, so we're thinking that they're going to be taking this thing out to the pad, just filling it and seeing where it pops, just kind of like SLS did recently. Remember, we had the SLS tank go boom, and it was very intentional. This is probably likely going to be exactly that. Make sure that they're, not overbuilding it, not underbuilding it, that it fits right within their design envelope. So that'll be something to pay attention to. What do you guys think about that? You guys,
so they're going to intentionally blow this one or not?
that's either intentionally blow it or likely pressurize it just well over design pressure. So it might go boom. It might hold up, but
so it's not like the NASA one where they were pushing it until it broke intentionally. It may do it, but
I guess we just don't even have enough info if that's, what their intention is or what their end goal is for it, because it's internal. So, they might push it to destruction. They might just try to reach a certain pressure point, Yeah. Maybe Joe, you'll be able to hear it in Dallas.
I'll keep my ears open.
But yeah, it's just fun to see. They've been working so hard on these everything Starship down there. It's just been nuts. And of course, this is on top of they're going to have the busiest year in the world because they just launched their Starlink mission. This was technically the second operational Starlink mission on Monday. The cool thing about this was, again, this was another fourth use booster. But my favorite thing about this was the fact that we got the best footage I've ever seen of a landing on a drone ship. Check this footage out.
Yeah, it didn't cut out.
It did not cut out at all. So good job to the teams there to make that happen. Because
man, what kind of camera would even be able to adjust the dynamic range that quickly?
Well, it's mostly a matter of just plain exposure, plain old exposure ramping. And it doesn't actually do the best job, really, when you talk about too quickly. I mean, look at how once the engine shuts down, it sits there for a while, pitch black, so it doesn't ramp too quickly. But that's probably intentional. I mean, look at how dark it is for a long time, and now it slowly ramps up. Very slowly, actually. I'm sure they have that ramping at a set speed so that if there were to be an explosion.
Well, and then lights come on, right? So probably...
No.
Oh, no lights come on afterwards?
Mm-mm.
Oh, interesting.
The lights are always on. That's just how much
there's some lights over on the left right there.
Yep, that's just how much the exposure changes between the flame and the lights are constant. They're not shutting the lights off. That's just, you can see the lights are still on the left. But you can just tell that the exposure just slowly ramps up after that flame. And I'm guessing they keep the exposure very, very low in the slow ramp so that, if it landed and it blew up, if you had it back to that bright exposure right away, you this,
just miss it,
you would have no idea what happened. You'd just see white. It'd be this right there, Yeah. And that's not going to tell you anything. So the engineers, I'm sure, would prefer it to stay underexposed for a while so that they would be able to tell.
Do they still have the Roomba thing go lock it down?
Yes, they do. Yep. And that's a vital part of the recovery efforts, especially ever since that Falcon Heavy they landed, that they didn't have the Roomba ready, and that's the one that they lost, That's the one that full blown tipped over on the deck and broke. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm sure that we will always be seeing Roombas from now on. But this was cool. This was the fourth flight of that booster. So hopefully we're going to start seeing, fifth flights coming up soon, sixth flight, seventh flight. They're just making that look easy. They unfortunately missed catching the fairing. They were trying to catch the fairing. Ooh, I forgot to pull that up. But there's a picture someone took at the Cape. Apparently, it got so close to catching it again that parafoil, the actual parachute, was stuck in the net. But the fairing missed.
So it's just dragging it behind on the way back to the port?
Yes. So we're talking, it was really, really close, which is such a shame. I'm sure they're just no. Yeah.
So I feel like you've answered this before, but the way that they release the Starlink satellites with that sort of loop-de-doo maneuver, instead of just pushing them out, they kind of spin the craft, the second stage, and then just kind of let it go at just the right time.
Yeah.
Why? Well, why do they do it like that? It's I've never seen any other. Why? Do you know?
That's a pretty. Yeah, that's a good question because I think a lot of it has to do with total guess here. This is just my guess. If you have a spring, which is normally basically your payload and payload adapter with SpaceX is literally you push it down against the spring and there's some clamps that hold onto it. And then you let go, and it just pushes it away.
And that gives it just enough velocity to float away from the second stage.
Yep, exactly. All you need to do is separate it, Right. All you need to do is push it a little bit. But my guess would be if you are pushing, this is a total of a guess, and you have that stack of satellites, you just would end up compressing them together. As opposed to if you introduce centrifugal force, they're already intentionally, they're pulling apart, and as soon as you let go, it at least aids them in separating. would be my guess.
See,
And
that
they'd
was what
all
I was
have-
thinking, was maybe like doing it sort of at an angle causes them to sort of unfold and separate the way they do.
And they would all have
I'm
a little
using
bit
hand
of
motions to make it more clear to the viewers.
like this.
In
But
slow
no, that's-
motion and space motion.
No, but that's exactly right. Each one would have a little bit different momentum, to it, because it's different amount of centrifugal momentum at different distances, away from the like center point. So they would all slightly spread out at a little bit different rate, and all it takes is that little bit, as opposed to if they're just being pushed, they'd all basically have that initial inertia anyway, and they'd all just move together, and it'd be really hard for them to separate. That
It's like
that's my guess.
It's somehow simultaneously like this brilliant work of physics engineering and also just like this redneck hack, They're like, just spin it and let go,
Yeah. No, that's exactly right. And I love that it works though. Like, how cool. I mean, you have to imagine that they were laughing when they were like, I guess this is our best option. I bet literally the table, when they decided to actually be like, this is actually our best option. And I'll bet people were just like hands in their, like, just laughing. Like, are you
There's
serious?
probably, as a former, data engineer, that mindset, I'm sure, is like, no, we have to do it this way. There has to be 500 parts, like a complete over-engineered
Right.
thing. And someone's like, no, man, no, dog, just spin it and let go, and it's fine.
They're like, what if you just like spun it and let go?
Yeah,
That's great.
it's California, man. Who knows?
Yeah, that's true.
And or Washington, which is where they actually make the Starlink satellites. So now they're up to, basically there's 120 operational satellites that are being deployed. Have you guys seen any of the Starlink satellites yet in the sky?
Like actually with my eyes, like
Yeah.
looking at no, I can barely see stars here.
Yeah.
Well, when they're being deployed and until they're in their operational orbit, they're pretty bright. I have to admit.
Did you see him?
Oh, yeah. I had a friend call me and she's like, hey, would we be able to see that Starlink right now? And I'm like, I don't know, maybe. He's like, well, there's like a bunch of stars all moving in a row. I'm like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah. I just walked outside and I'm like, oh, yeah. Like, it was very obvious. And it was, it's really cool. Like, I thought that was awesome. I do hope, for the sake of astronomy, that it gets a lot dimmer. And because they did test one of the 60 on this one had a different coating on it, a different paint, to help reduce albedo, reduce reflectivity. So we'll see if it makes a difference. But
Yeah, I heard something about that.
Maybe don't make them, shiny stainless steel, maybe make them like a matte color or something.
well, I'm sure that initially they already had some kind of, consideration, but I'm thinking there's been a decent amount of backlash about how bright they are,
And when you say you saw them, that was when they're going up, when they're reaching their orbit, or like when that's where they're going to be forever.
Well, they were in their initial orbit. It takes like a month or two to actually get out to its full thing. I mean, granted, this was probably a month ago already, or something, or 3 weeks ago. So it had already been 3 weeks since it was weeks after a launch. We'll put it that way. And because of that, they were still where you'd see a larger train of them. Like, they were every, like if you were looking at the horizon, they'd come over maybe every 5 seconds, and you'd see it like that. Right now, if you were to see the launch from Monday, they'd still be pretty much in a train. They'd be kind of all like, you'd see them all in the sky at once. This was spread out enough where you're seeing about every 5 seconds one come over. And once they get into their final orbit, it'd really only be about one. By the time the other one's about to set, that's when the next one will come up over the horizon. So it's like one every 2 minutes or something. I don't know. Something like that. So just because of orbital mechanics and the way they're spreading out over time and getting into their final orbits and all that stuff, that's kind of where they're at in the sky right now. But it's still really, it's just nuts. I mean, there's a lot of technology on these. There's a lot of things that are gonna, and they also thanked Space Force in their on their webcast. And we've seen things of them working with a meeting with different corporals and stuff like that. And I'm starting to think that there's definitely going to be some interest with the U.S. military or Department of Defense or something with Starlink, which would make sense.
Yeah.
Obviously.
So is that like Patreon for SpaceX, basically?
Yes.
Just like we need to thank our Patreon supporters.
No, I in general, I feel like Starlink is going to be SpaceX's, like, that's their profit right there. That's going to be the thing that makes them make it so they can go to Mars, lose billions of dollars, spend $50 billion or whatever to go to Mars and all that stuff. And they won't care because they're just like, whatever. We're printing money.
It's a game changer, dude. The guys I know that used to work at SpaceX all had that kind of, saying, like, once Starlink is for real, like, up and running, consumer available, commercially available, Elon will be, 10 times richer than any other person on the planet. Because it's just gonna. I mean, think about it. Like, now with this, it's gonna crush all the telecom companies. Maybe not overnight, but I mean, like, quickly. All of a sudden, if you can get something cheaper and better, and it's something you desperately need and also use, like, every single day, all day, yeah, of course you're going to do that, right? So the market share is just going to be like, I think they're just going to gobble it up. I think it's going to be incredible. How much longer do we have? Is it this year? Because what is it? 400 is like light coverage, 800 is like medium coverage, and then like their plan is like 6,000 satellites or something eventually. Some crazy number, right?
Eventually, 4, like over 40,000.
Over 40? What?
Yeah,
dude.
Seriously?
Yeah.
I'm moving. I'm out. I'm going to
moving
Mars.
to Mars, or where are you moving to?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's an awful lot. It's an awful lot, and this already made SpaceX the largest satellite operator. This launch made it so SpaceX is currently operating the largest fleet of satellites, period. Currently. Not necessarily the most satellites ever in operation total, but they are now the largest operator of satellites, and it's just the very, 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 very beginning. So say they have 20 more launches, that'll be 1,200 more satellites, and that'll easily put them within, like, operational range.
Yeah.
This year.
If I did want to move somewhere away from Starlink's influence, might there be like another planet out there that fits that need?
I don't know.
Okay, that was an excellent segue, but before I jump into that, I just wanted to let you know, out of curiosity, I pulled up my phone and divided 40,000 satellites by 60, because they launch 60 at a time, right?
Yeah.
Just to see how many launches it would be.
Yeah.
This will start a lot of
1,200
conspiracy theories. It's 666 launches.
Well, and the
dun,
original number of satellites they said that they would have to launch was 420.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
They needed 7 launches of 60. And I think, did Elon say, like, it just happens to come out to 420? Like, 400 is the real number, but just based on the math of how many they launch at a time, it will be 420.
Go figure.
Yeah.
Well, actually, before we move on to Joe's planet, that Ben, you wanted
My
to
planet.
we did see. I get asked this question all the time on while I'm live streaming the launches, about why this, like, mylar foil, the thermal coating foil in the upper stage, why it, like, has this heartbeat, this pulse. I don't know if you guys can see that very well, but it flashes kind of, and it, like, compresses, and it looks almost like there's, like, a beating heart underneath the foil of the upper stage. And I had my ideas, I thought it was maybe some kind of, like some kind of purge valve or little puffs of RCS. And I asked Elon, and 8 minutes later he said, which is just insane that he got back that quick. He said, since there's only one main engine, which gives pitch, yaw control. So basically, the engine can only move in two directions. So you can't actually induce roll, with a single engine. How do you do that? Roll control is provided by nitrogen attitude control thrusters. And then Supe or Bjordhog, which is a patron member of mine. He's the guy that, if you ever see an insane Photoshop of me or Elon, basically, yeah, that's him. He asks, so it basically hits the MLI with gas from the RCS, which causes it to fluctuate in pulse. And Elon says, I haven't cross-checked with RCS pulses with the dimpling in the video, but it's most likely the cause. So basically, in order to control roll, they're just kind of doing those little puffs of RCS to do that, and it interacts with the Mylar foil, with the thermal insulation. Pretty cool. We finally know exactly what it is.
So, and what is RCS?
The little reaction control thrusters. So basically, they have those on the upper stage as well to maintain control, and even like that big spin maneuver, once the engine's shut down, they put it into that spin using the RCS. Yeah. So same thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know what that is. I just didn't know what RCS was.
Yeah.
I know a rocket thing. Or two.
Do you know anything about that a planet though where Ben could move?
Yeah,
to?
let's do that. There's gonna be some spoilers for my Monday video, which is gonna cover the satellite that discovered this. So whatever. But yeah. So TESS, the Transiting Exoplanet Survey Satellite, which was launched on a Falcon 9, by the way, discovered this planet. It is the first one that they found that is an Earth-sized world in the habitable zone of its star. I think it's the first one that TESS has found. I think there have been some others that other telescopes have found, especially Kepler. But yeah, so it's called, because they're so great with names, TOI 700D. Like that sounds like a phone model or something.
It's a new camera coming out next year.
Exactly.
I think I saw it.
But yeah, it's a roughly Earth-sized planet. Blah, 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 blah. They just found it on January 6th. 101.5 light years from Earth. So we'll never get there.
Super close.
So if you really wanted to get away from people.
Super far away.
Yeah, super far away. But yeah, so the thing about TESS, and I'll be talking about this, like I said, on Monday, it's one of these things, they do the transit method. So they find planets that go between the star and where we are right now, which means it has to be along, the planet has to be on a plane that crosses between the star and us. So there's actually a very small fraction of planets that it can actually find, and yet they are still finding thousands of them. So it just gives you an idea of how many planets there are out there. But another thing about TESS specifically is that in order to see an Earth-like planet passing in front of a star, that star usually has to be pretty small, because the planet is taking up a certain percentage of it's occulting,
or
is that
like
the right word?
Occultation.
Yeah, it's covering up the sun. It's
occult.
Eclipsing.
It's in the occult. There we go.
Occult sounds. It's like a demonic planet.
Yeah, it's in the occult. Yeah.
Right. Well, anyway, so in order for it to be an Earth-sized planet, it's usually a pretty small star. So like this one was a red dwarf, and we found several other red dwarfs. TRAPPIST-1 was a red dwarf, and they found 7 planets in that system. But the problem with smaller suns and the smaller planets that go around them is they're usually in like really, really tight orbital cycles, which means they're really close and usually tidally locked. So it's probably like an eyeball planet, which means that basically one side is facing the sun at all times. So like one side of it would be the Sahara and the other side
Scorched
would be
Earth,
completely yeah, exactly. So
frozen.
It might be in the habitable zone, but the water would probably be like a ring in a polar configuration around. You follow what I'm saying? Like the actual water oceans would be kind of like on the edges of the planet. So like
it's like
if it did have life, you would always be
like, yeah.
So those aren't the best candidates for life, but if it has water, But yeah, that's 20% larger than Earth. It orbits the sun every 37 days. So its year is 37 days long. 37?
Oh man.
Yeah. So that's how close it is to the star.
Wow. Jeez.
So it's a very small star in a very small orbit.
Yeah. Dang.
So
that's wild.
But that's all fine. It's all about the ratios, really, right? It's not the size that matters here, people. It's right because like the weird thing about like why we have solar eclipses and stuff is because there happens to be the perfect ratio of like the size of the moon and the distance from the sun and the size of the sun and all that. Yeah, so it all works. It doesn't have to be. And is our star, is the sun very big in relative terms? It's kind of small itself, isn't it?
What they call it? Of course, I'm going to blank on the word right now. It's not mid-cycle, but something like that.
Yeah, like the next one, it becomes a red giant and eats us all. But that's like
once it reaches that point where it collapses and then red giants,
supernovas and stuff. Yeah.
Well, the sun won't go supernova. It's not big enough for that. But so what's funny is I'll get out of here. We were finding all these planets around these other stars and stuff, and a lot of them are these smaller red dwarfs and smaller orbital cycles and everything. We may be finding out that like our solar system is kind of an outlier. It's kind of an anomaly. Like we're finding all these other planets, but what we're finding is that our solar system is just weird. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of giving more credence to the whole rare Earth hypothesis thing that life sprouted up here because of very specific circumstances.
To be fair, though, there's 100 billion stars that we can see, and each one each one of those has there's like hundreds of billions of planets around stars, around hundreds of billions of stars. So we're
in hundreds of billions of galaxies.
Yeah. I mean, trillions and trillions of possibilities. We've covered, not even close to a fraction of a percent of them.
No. And like I said, this transit method, there's 178 or 9 degrees of orbits that we would never see with this method. There's only like a couple of degrees of orbital inclinations that we see, and we still found like 4,000 planets that way.
Well, and how that telescope, is it a radio telescope?
That's a good question.
No, I think it's TESS, I believe, has like
actual
tons
cameras?
of little like cameras or something that because it kind of surveys the whole sky almost at once or something. It's super cool.
So again, I'll be talking about it on Monday, but yeah, the thing that's cool about TESS is it's not actually it's actually designed to find candidate planets, not necessarily to confirm them. Like it's just looking for little blips out there, and then it kind of records them, and then they turn bigger telescopes on them and watch that specific star for longer, because it'll watch a patch of sky for like 27 days, and then it'll like move to the next one, and then move to the next one. So it's just surveying the entire
got it. Yeah, so it's pictures is what it's doing. It's not. Yeah. So it's looking for light, not radio waves. And if I'm correct, I don't know. Like that is in terms of our technology far less effective at identifying details of things, right?
The optical wavelength?
Versus radio waves. Like radio telescopes are the ones that tell us like way more details about things super, super far away. Am I wrong?
Right. So this is my understanding is that the further away you get, the longer the wavelength of light, the more it shifts into the red until it gets all the way down to radio. So those are the ones that are like really far away. So that's what James Webb is going to be about. James Webb is going to be a radio telescope, and it's going to be able to see like to the beginning of the universe, basically.
Right.
Well, the earliest light.
But to be clear, to do the transit and be able to do the spectroscopy in order to be able to see what's in the atmosphere, I would assume that requires more optical range than just like infrared and radio waves.
Well, yeah, because it's looking for light and fluctuations in light, right?
And the actual like atmospheric composition of light coming through. So that's what's insane is when they actually do figure out what's like what the atmosphere is made of, or what's that. They literally look at the light, see how it's split and where there's blocks of different parts of the spectrum to be able to understand what the light went through, which is just the craziest. The fact that works is insane.
It's nuts. So, and Henrietta Leavitt is the one to thank for most of that. You guys know that whole story?
Yeah.
Oh, was she the one that found the little lines in the spectroscopy? Or
and at the time you're talking like the 1800s or something. Like literally it was done by hand, and she's literally charting and graphing like dots and drawing lines and going, hey, wait a minute, it looks like there's a thing when I see this thing. let me see. Can I come up with like a formula? Oh, and like all of a sudden we now know where we are in the cosmos because of that like little, always blown away by that. It's like such the best example. When I would teach data stuff, I would often use that as an example of like, you don't need, supercomputer and the latest AI stuff to come up with valuable things, right? Like 1800s, a woman in the 1800s also think about the rights she had. Basically none, and she was able to do it like given the scraps that the real scientists didn't want to mess with, kind of a thing. So it's so it's just an inspiring story.
They didn't think there was any information there, and she found it.
Yeah, and then I don't know what the truth is, but like didn't Edwin Hubble like steal it or something, or publish it under his name? Either stole it or it was like hey, you're a woman and not allowed to publish papers because you're a woman, and so I have to do it for you. So who knows, right? But there's like some weird conspiracy theories about that whole thing.
Yeah. Can you get your husband to submit this paper for you?
I mean, dude, 1800s, like very real scenario.
Yeah, it's crazy. That's awesome though. That's I love those like anything exoplanet. Just it opens up your imagination to be like, what is that world like? And like, I hope we get better and better glimpses of planets. I mean, someday we'll be able to, imagine if we had like a telescope significantly larger than Hubble. James Webb, obviously, like we said, is infrared and radio waves. But, imagine if, I don't know, like just figuring out what else these planets have on them, or like, I know we're way too far out in the future to be able to talk about like surface features, but one can dream,
I don't know. Have they actually caught like an actual image of a planet before?
I don't know.
I think they did one, and it was like a Jupiter-sized planet. Like it was
massive,
almost half the size of the star itself, or something. But
that's insane.
But to find a planet like ours in the orbit that we're in around a star like we have, I don't think we even have the technology to do that yet.
Right.
Like it's still
because the star would be so bright that you wouldn't be able to see it. Right.
Yeah, and the planet is so small and so far away from it.
Yeah.
It'd be like an ant crawling across a giant spotlight or something. Like you wouldn't be able to discern what was there.
Another thing, like I said, with the TESS satellite, it only focuses on a patch of sky for 27 days. So like if an alien on another star were watching Earth with a similar satellite, there's a major chance they would never even see any of our planets cross in front of it.
Right. And like you said, it has to be on the right inclination.
Right.
Well, and I mean, I love the rabbit hole where this takes us, and I don't want to take us too far, but something that when you think about this stuff, we're searching for, like, everything we know of life is based on our, singular experience of what life is here.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So we search for things that are like the things here. But do we, and probably somebody has done a deep dive into this, but like, do we know that is the only possibility for life, or what we define intelligent life as, to exist? Like we always say you need liquid water. Well, I don't know. Is that true? Like people generally think that we breathe pure oxygen, which is totally wrong. So, I mean, are some of our assumptions, because of our one data point, completely wrong? And like, there might be all kinds of other things out there, but we're not looking for them because, we're so singularly focused here. And I understand it'd be hard to be like, oh, well, that could be life. Like, you're just completely finger to the wind at that point, right? We have no data, no reference point whatsoever. But, so it might be really interesting. I mean, who knows what's out there? I guess that's the beauty of space exploration.
Well, if we could find even just primordial life on any of the other planets of our solar system that was different from the life that we have here on Earth, and it was able to form twice in one solar system. So
would crush,
what I start thinking about is Drake's equation, right? About how, looking at all the variables and discovering life, and what are the odds of life being out there. Well, when he came up with that, we'd never found another exoplanet. We didn't know that any other stars had any other planets, and now we know that it's pretty much 100%. Like, pretty much every star has planets around it. Mm-hmm. So I love how we're just kind of slowly chipping away at the Drake equation. little by little.
I like the
eventually
part of
we'll-
the equation that's basically like, and that other life has to exist within a certain time window because we expect all species to destroy themselves eventually.
And or just have small windows where life is habitable on that planet too.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
in the grand scheme of things, like, you know, we're just going to be a blip on this planet's existence.
Yeah.
You know?
A lot of stars are also variable and suddenly have huge outputs of energy, and then the energy dims. I mean, everybody's talking about Betelgeuse. That's something we probably could have talked about on here, but Betelgeuse has dimmed, so a lot of people are saying, ooh, maybe it'll go supernova, but it's also a variable star. That's what it does.
Right.
So it would be awesome to see it go supernova, though. You'd be able to see it in the daytime. It'd be like having a second sun.
Whoa.
Yeah. For like a few days. But still.
Last question.
Still.
So, last week we talked about, is it a new decade? I'm curious, is Pluto a planet?
God.
Are we really going to go there on this podcast?
That's a different
Can't
podcast.
we keep politics out of this
How is that
podcast?
politics? That's not politics.
I know. Just
And
kidding.
I only bring it up.
People get just as triggered over that.
Well, it's
for
funny
some
because
reason.
I've heard like astrophysicists and those kind of people say, no, it's not a planet. And then you have like planetologists that are like, it's absolutely a planet. So even, from what I've heard, the science community doesn't fully agree, but just somebody has a louder voice on one. And it frustrates me to no end because I have a book that I read to my son, and it's about the solar system. And every time it's like, and our solar system has 8 planets. And I'm like, like it pains me,
Well, the big nail in the coffin is if we're to call Pluto a planet, we have to start including like
Europa.
Series.
like an unbelievable amount of other bodies. Like way too many. So it's just way easier to say like these are, dwarf planets or whatever.
Yeah.
And
And also all the planets, the 8 planets are all along that same elliptical plane. Whatever.
Orbital.
It's on the same plane, and then Pluto's kind of like out there doing
Doing
a different
Pluto
kind of thing.
things.
Doing Pluto things.
I mean,
Yeah.
but
I love
and then
Pluto.
yeah.
Who doesn't love Pluto,
Yeah, what's
right?
not to
It's
love?
just
Well, and some people
It's-
make up the rule that it needs to be able to clear its own orbital plane too. Like it needs to. So like
Yeah, that's- exactly.
Earth, all the major planets. There's nothing else on that same orbit basically because it's it's either collected it and ran into it,
Right.
and it's turned into that planet, or it's gravity slingshot it away from the planet. And so that's something that Pluto is incapable of doing because it's just too small. So it did not clear its own orbital path, and therefore that's another definition. I
That's
just
like
think
the astrophysicist definition, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah.
So
Anyways,
let's get some
speaking
comments
of-
on that.
Yeah, there we go. We just opened up
Can't
the
wait.
comment
Can't wait
section.
for those.
Speaking of clearing the path for things to shoot, I don't know.
go for it.
Look at this. NASA tweeted this. Do you guys recognize one of those babies? So
It's the Crew Dragon.
Upside
yeah.
down candy
Yeah.
corn. That's all white.
actually, it looks just like a straight up dot. Do you guys eat dots ever?
Oh
Like
yeah.
those,
Oh, yeah.
gummies? Yeah. This is the Crew Dragon capsule that's going to do the in-flight abort test here. Hopefully, we're just over a week, in like 9 days from now. So, yeah, a week from Saturday, pretty much. I will be down at the Cape for this one. This is one that I have to see. We've kind of talked about it on the show. This is where I still don't have confirmation on whether or not they're going to intentionally like trigger the flight termination system, or if they're going to, or if they just absolutely, they are not going to try to recover it at all because they totally assume the booster will blow up when, the Dragon capsule aborts from it. There's who knows? It's maybe I should just pop on the old Twitter and see if we can get Daddy Elon.
Daddy, what do you say, Daddy?
Well, now he might be dad number technically 7, but 6 still with us. We'll see. That's a
Hope he can afford it.
Yeah, he can afford it.
I don't know if it,
But yeah,
you get on the wait list at the preschool now, man. I'm telling you.
Do you guys have any questions about the in-flight abort test coming up?
It goes up.
Could something go boom?
Yeah.
Yeah, might ish. SpaceX is gonna have a lot of booms here this
Boom.
year already. I mean, they're going to be blowing up that tank here probably in the next little bit. They just blew up one just recently. They're probably going to blow up this. I can't wait for the headlines on this one.
I know,
You
right?
know for a fact they're going to be like, SpaceX aborted and blew up a rocket. You know, like SpaceX rocket explodes after abort test. You know, something like that.
We're calling it now, and I'm telling you, we should just kind of like scan the internet afterwards and find them. Someone's going to do that.
Yeah.
I
Well,
guarantee.
Business Insider will do it.
I mean, I'll just do it for you guys. That way we can talk about it.
No
Cheating.
Yeah.
Yeah. Place your bets on what the headline will be and how. Let's find the most negative version of a successful test and let us know what you guys find. Yeah.
Yeah, those will be some fun comments.
Yep.
So
that'll be a really fun one to go and see. That's why I'm going to do something really cool. I'm working with the folks at OPT Telescopes right there near you, Ben, in Vista. They're lending me out. I'm going to be working with Scott, who does Astronomy Live. I don't know if you guys know. He basically has developed the system to be able to track rockets using telescopes.
Oh, nice.
And we're going to hook up. So basically, you know how NASA has those giant like telescopes that they track rockets with? We're basically going to be doing that ourselves. And he already has one, and OPT's providing another one. So I'm going to be controlling one with the joystick and everything and hooking it up to my 4K slow-mo camera.
And like live streaming it, or?
Yeah.
But is it?
I'm going to be live streaming and recording in slow-mo.
But it doesn't like automatically track it?
It can, but we don't think we have enough time to really hone this new one in. But he will likely be, and this one's, I'm going to be pretty close at the press site, and this is going to blow up pretty quick, like in the first minute.
Wow.
So it might be so close that, and if you have it automatically tracking, say it does have a disintegration event, at abort, what's the tracking software going to do if all of a sudden it's looking for bright objects? It might just go nuts, and you might just
not
get
a lot
nothing.
of training data there for it to learn from.
Exactly. So it might be better off if I'm just trying to follow the Dragon capsules it pulls away, or just focus on the booster or something, Mm-hmm. But I'm really excited. This is going to be a fun challenge, and hopefully some really, really cool footage, slow-mo 4K of a booster blowing up and a Dragon capsule escaping.
Yeah.
So we'll see. This is one of those. I'm really excited because you don't get to see this really ever. So, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of blowing up, you guys remember that movie WALL-E?
Oh,
Remember the
I think I know where you're going with this. Yeah.
Remember
Oh
the
God, is that what CES was this year?
So I was just at the Consumer Electronics Show, and WALL-E is real.
Oh my
God. The chair from WALL-E. If you guys haven't seen the movie, it's a Disney movie. It's really cute. It's a great movie. Humans evolve? Would you say evolve or devolve? Devolve to be carried around by these floating chairs, and everything is done so we all become super fat and just like really bad, and like they can't even walk, right? Like getting out of their chairs, like
Yeah.
And Segway basically has that now, with the S Pod, it's called. And my buddy Sean from The Verge, who did a great video on it, an article here, got to ride in it, and he had some interesting points that I thought were, because like at first glance I'm like, oh, this is great for handicapped people, right? That's like, seems like it's the obvious use case, but the way he described it was more a thing not just for people that have mobility challenges, but for like tours of places. Like imagine you're going through DC or something, and whatever, this might be just another fun, quirky way to do that. Because they're not available to consumers. They're not selling them to consumers yet. But so they're going to be very expensive at first. Wildest part about this, I don't know if you guys can see it on the screen, top speed of this thing, 24 miles per hour. Can you imagine how terrifying that would be? 24 miles per hour in a chair. Like,
oh God,
and
like basically being pushed around in an office chair,
and there's not like a
24 mile an hour.
seatbelt or anything. So
well, I don't know if you'd want a seatbelt, because then you're just going to have that smashing your face into the pavement. You might want to jump clear from it.
Yeah. So anyways, yeah, it's a
when you hit a
two-wheeled
pebble.
vehicle, which is interesting. Which is kind of Segway's thing, right? The whole gyroscope thing. And the reason that's interesting and cool is because if you actually had a third wheel, your turning radius and everything would be bad. Like you would probably tip over far more than just having the 2 with the gyroscope. So, anyways, I know we didn't tee that up, but I just thought that was like a very like CES kind of thing. Ludicrous future.
This has been around forever, though, right?
What?
So here, let me show you something here.
Let me show you something.
Get out of the screen.
Let me show you something.
Get out of my screen.
So this is probably at least 10 years ago now. Toyota already, 2007, 13 years ago.
Three-wheel,
Toyota already did this. Yeah, 3-wheel, but it's the exact same concept. You just sit in a chair and get driven around, and you order your coffees and stuff from the chair.
Looks like it's hugging you.
This was that's not bad looking.
They featured this. This is Toyota did the iReal personal chair, and this was featured on Top Gear when it came out. There's a picture of Richard Hammond.
I was going to say this has to be a CES thing. This had to be unveiled at CES 2007.
Well, what's crazy about that is I love it because Richard Hammond goes up to the camera and goes, "I don't know how to tell them this, but I think they just invented the wheelchair." Like it's like that's all it really is. It's just a wheelchair that's a little nicer.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was thinking. Looking at the Segway thing, it's like, okay, so it's like a motorized scooter on 2 wheels. Like, what's the
it's like a
deal?
Segway, like a that, but a chair version of it.
Segway wheelchair. Literally.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you mentioned a second ago it might be good for tours. That's the only place I've ever really seen Segways being used. Like the regular Segways is like these little downtown tours in Dallas. There's a company that does that. I could see this being kind of incorporated into that for like elderly people or people who don't get around as well and can't stand very easily or whatever. I get that.
Yep.
Or people with just balance issues and muscle issues. I can see that. I feel like they don't always. Okay, did you know that a lot of those really crazy infomercials are actually products for handicapped and disabled people? But they kind of market it for everybody so that they can make money off of it. But a lot of them are like they look crazy, like these made up problems. Like, have you ever had trouble opening a cabinet door and everything comes falling out? But if you have mobility issues, that could be a problem. So it's actually something that.
Yeah, I don't.
Anyway,
The only issue I see with that here is that it's giant. Like you would need, you'd need a Cybertruck to put this thing in or something. You know what I mean? And it would have to be self-driving. Like it would have to, push a button and it goes and docks itself and plugs itself in. That would be pretty cool. That would be a ludicrous future. But yeah, I don't know if it's coming to consumers. It's a wild thing. Now, the only thing that made me laugh about that Toyota one is is that the only electric car they've made ever? Because they're kind of anti-electric cars. So, anyways,
Sort of,
I'm not a fan of you, Toyota, right now. Okay, I'm a little frustrated. I'm a little upset. Okay, I really want you guys to make an electric car. Like Sony, who is now
Sony has made an electric car,
making an electric car. Why can I not share my correct screen with you guys? There it is. So at CES. Which I hate that it's not the Consumer Electronics Show anymore. It's just called CES. It's so annoying. But yeah, because
kind of like how South by Southwest is like nothing of what it was 20 years ago.
Right.
It's just.
I mean, half the stuff at CES,
whatever it wants to be.
Yeah, half the stuff at CES was like suppliers of parts to consumer products. So you're walking around and they're like, "Hey, do you guys do you buy like camera wires?" Like what? Like what is this? Like you know what I mean? They sell like the little tiny component that goes inside of a camera or something. You have a giant booth, and you're like, who is your market here? Like who? Consumers, right? No,
maybe if you. Oh, true. Yeah.
Anyways, so Sony did something really cool. I think they probably got the surprise award at CES for unveiling what they are calling the Vision S. Now, it's a concept car, and it looks a lot like, to me, the Porsche Taycan, but much more Sony-like. So on the on the interior, it has just one. It's actually several, but it's kind of all seamlessly tied together, like one panoramic screen, and then there's a touchpad underneath. And it doesn't have mirrors. It has the cameras, and then it has little screens inside. The rear view mirror is also a camera. The back seats have these big, beautiful screens. And it's kind of, I mean, I'm not upset at this, dude. I think it's pretty compelling. Even the door handles look like Porsches to me, though. I asked them about it, and they're like, "Oh, I don't know." I'm like, "Come on, dude! Like, look at this little air scoop thing here. The door hand, basic.
Like, what's a Porsche?
Yeah, I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, this is almost identical."
Wow, you're right. The more I see it, the more I'm like, yeah, that does look just like the Taycan.
Yeah, and they said that they okay. So the reason I'm excited about this, the reason I'm talking about it is concept cars are concept cars. We have more concept cars to talk about, but this one actually drives, and it was a ground up build, meaning they built all the parts. And now I'm sure they got a lot of stuff from the typical auto suppliers, like Bosch makes everything, things like that. But generally, the big ticket items were all them, and it makes sense because Sony obviously makes great cameras, so they have great camera sensing technology. They have great screens, things like that. They have the whole like PlayStation type thing in terms of like user interfaces and network connectivity stuff. So, and in fact, you guys will get a kick out of this. In that back seat, which has the screen, if I can find a better shot of it, so the cameras around the car, and there's like 36 sensors and cameras and things. It's like totally decked out crazy. Those cameras are actually very high resolution, and you can hit record and then edit a video in the car. Like, who needs that?
That's
I don't
awesome.
know, but I want it.
That's awesome. Wow.
So yeah, like all glass panoramic roof, yada yada. It's it's a dual motor, 200 kilowatt motors on each side, so pretty good. It had a really heavy profile though, over 5,100 pounds, I believe. So for a sedan, that's a lot.
Isn't that about this? That's the weight about the Model S, isn't it?
Yeah, probably. It's probably more than the Model S. Maybe the dual motor, 100 kilowatt hour pack or something like that. Yeah, you're up there. Because the Model X is like 5,500 pounds curb weight, not gross vehicle weight. But yeah, I mean, it's super heavy, right? And the Model 3 is actually surprisingly light comparatively. I mean, it's super heavy for a car, but... anyways,
probably translate 5,000 pounds is about what 2,200-ish, 2,250 or something kilograms.
Yeah, those things. So they had some interesting stuff here. 360-degree audio in it. Again,
Yeah, are there speakers in the seat? Is that what I'm looking at right now?
Yeah,
looks like it.
Yeah, that's right. That's correct. So on like where your neck is, right behind the headrest, are speakers. And they have literally the whole thing is just decked out with like, because you think like what Sony has been making electronics forever, and so everything that Sony has ever made is like in this car,
Wow.
Best tweet about the car, funniest thing, they totally missed the mark by not calling it the Drive Man. Yeah, you have the Walkman, now this is the Drive Man. But yes, go ahead.
What are the specs on the car again, though? 300-mile range?
No, there's
right?
no range announced. There's no battery pack announced in terms of the specs of it. But they did say that they built, I don't know if they have a photo of it here, like the whole skateboard design, like they built that. And that's what they use. So that was kind of the big deal of so officially they are not going to ever make cars. This is not a real car that you will ever be able to buy. So
yeah, this is like a display of all their technology for cars.
Right.
But
it actually drives, and it's an actual car. So unlike, and we can talk about the other ones, but if you saw the Mercedes, in fact, I have it up here, Avacar, I don't know what they're calling it, the James Cameron Avatar car thing.
Why wouldn't they just produce that? Why don't they just?
Yeah, seriously.
That's a good-looking car with a lot
if
of
enough people are interested by this story,
No,
or by not by this story, but
by our podcast.
This got a lot of attention.
Which one? The Mercedes one or the Sony one?
Stick to the Sony. I want to keep talking about it. I'm not done yet. I like it.
Yeah. Okay. So here's the deal, though. Why I care, why I think this is super important and impressive is, if you look at all the other automakers besides Tesla, they are really struggling to make electric cars. They all know how to make cars, and they can make them electric, but there's so much more that goes into it, namely the battery and the powertrain, the motors, the software, the ecosystem. Basically, things that Sony is generally good at. So the idea being that they, with their skateboard packs and the copious amounts of screens and sensors and Sony tech that's packed into this thing, they could become a supplier of like the skateboard battery pack and powertrain stuff for a VW or Mercedes or anybody. I mean, basically anyone that's struggling to make an electric car, which is practically everyone besides Tesla. So that's why I'm super excited about this. Because, yeah, officially they're like, no, this isn't a thing. Like, we're not going to make cars, but this is like what we can do. If you took every piece of Sony tech we've ever made, you could form it into a car and this would be it.
Well,
So it almost sounds like, and I've been saying for a long time now that Teslas are basically just a computer on wheels, It almost feels like there's so much of a difference between a traditional car and the whole computer software ecosystem kind of thing, that the traditional automakers are just struggling to make it happen. And maybe it is the place for a Sony or obviously a Tesla to jump in and just attack it as a computer that happens to have wheels on it.
Yeah.
yeah.
It's a device. It's a large device.
Oh, and yeah, it definitely helps them like sell their technology. But
do
makes sense.
you see the screen here? So I actually really like how this is laid out.
Yeah.
Doesn't the Honda E have the same thing?
I haven't seen
That sort
it.
of landscape screen all the way across?
Yeah, I didn't
I've seen that in a couple of places.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and I know that the Taycan kind of has that, but they're all broken up, so it's like multiple screens. This one actually has a thing where you could like take the center display and like swipe it with a gesture over to the passenger, and then they can interact with it and do things like that. So yeah, it's like I mean, if this car existed and they were gonna make this, it would sell. I think like this is pretty dope. Like I really liked it. And just more importantly, if they can make these for other automakers, it could have a massive impact on the EV market. So, yeah.
Dang. Sweet.
Okay, so real quick,
There,
the whole camera as a rear view mirror thing or a side mirror thing.
Yep.
Is that street legal?
I don't believe so.
Like I thought that there were regulations against that, but I keep seeing them popping up everywhere.
Well, I think it's a like future kind of a thing, because assuming that we're gonna get rid of those eventually or whatever. Because I know, with the Roadster was the first one where Elon said, "Well, as an automaker, we technically have to have a mirror on it when we sell it to you, but you don't have to have a mirror on it." So
how cool would it be if they literally just on those pillars just have this really cheap, kind of like you always talk about with like that, that trunk divider thing and a few other things, like just a cheap like mirror that just unclips right away.
Yeah, that's basically what he
like,
alluded to. Is like, we'll just, yeah.
Wow, that'd be awesome. It's about time. I mean, that's one of those no duh things where the camera could actually improve, visibility and things like that in certain situations, and massively decrease your drag on the car. Those stupid things actually hurt you a lot.
Yep. Yeah, like 10% or something, right? Isn't it like?
Yeah, it's something shocking. Probably mostly because the back is just a flat piece of glass, creates a large amount of drag behind it.
If I could figure out how to focus my camera, I might be able to have a really great shot of this for you. Oh yeah, so they had all kinds of other tech here. So here's an example of they have these like sensors inside of the car, infrared sensors and cameras and stuff to help like, okay, eyes on the road, face, whatever, and then arms on the wheel, like all these kind of different things. I think this is kind of more gimmicky. I don't think people would like this. Like they seem to be hyped on it, but I think people would be really annoyed, and and just be like,
sorry, you can not operate this vehicle. Your hands are not at 10 and 2. They're at 9 and 2.
Yeah.
Like just slightly off. Like, no, I'm driving the car. Stop.
Yeah, or it's like, keep your eyes on the road. Like, dude, my kid is freaking out back here. He just spilled, like, no, I can, you know?
Yeah.
Sometimes you just have, like, I remember I got my son a little, it's called a vanilla steamer. It's like whole milk that's steamed at Starbucks with some vanilla in it. And they have a thing at Starbucks called kids temperature, which is generally like just kind of lukewarm. Well, this was definitely not that. And I remember driving, my son takes a drink of it, just like, you know, hysterically screaming, crying, milk shooting everywhere. And you're just like, ah. So yeah, I'm going to take my eyes off the road for half a second. And I feel like this technology would not want me to be doing that.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah. Now, there's all kinds of other EVs and stuff there, and we can go into details about them, but what other questions do you guys have about it? Because there was a lot of stuff that happened.
About CES?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, besides cars, I mean, or should we keep talking cars? Show us what other cars you were impressed with.
Okay.
And then, yeah.
So, Jeep is electrifying, is the term, every one of their vehicles, and these images come to us from Motor One. Maybe if I can go back to where they were. But so the Jeep Wrangler, the Jeep Compass, and the Jeep Renegade are all in this 4xe kind of a thing. I really don't like the look of the logo, but so they're going that way, which is probably great for their owners because these are generally, you know, the lowest fuel efficient cars out there. So they're going plug-in hybrid first, which, you know, don't let good be the enemy of perfect. So, you know, I'm happy about that. It's a step in the right direction. And yeah, so I mean, they had it, and then, you know, along with this, because it's Fiat Chrysler who owns Jeep. I don't know what the A stands for. FCA, I forget. They had a thing called the Fiat 120, and it's pretty dope, this little thing.
That's cool.
I don't know if you can see. Yeah, so it's like a little Fiat 500e, if you guys have seen the little cute beep beep, but it's stretched out a little bit. Super concept-y, you know, whatever. But like one of the things, and let me see if I can get the shot of it for you. Yeah, you know, it's super cute. It's very concept cars, like pandas and just kind of cheesy, you know.
Weird.
Yeah, it's kind of whatever. It's a concept car, right?
Those drumsticks?
Yeah.
Okay, right here. No, those little things are water bottles. Because I was like, what is this? And she said, oh, that's a cup holder. I'm like, so what is the thing in it? She's like, oh, it's a water bottle. I'm like, oh, so you just made like a goofy non-water bottle looking thing to put in your cup holder that...
Just for the show.
I was like, that was a bad, like, it was just confusing, you know? Like, what do you...
Yeah.
Okay, but here's the cool part, okay? Besides, I do think it's really cool that we have like these other different EVs, and this is like fits a weird little niche. I think it's really, really cool that this has happened. See this little thing underneath the seat with the little battery thing on it? Mm-hmm. That is a interchangeable battery that can extend your range.
Cool.
So this thing comes in different battery pack. I mean, this is a concept car, but the idea being that this would be like maybe some of these things would make it into the Fiat 500e. And this I thought was brilliant because in a smaller car, and we've talked about it before, almost like the rocket equation, right? Where there's like fuel, there's like an optimal amount of fuel to have in a rocket to push stuff or whatever. EVs are kind of the same way, where like a really tiny profiled car like the Fiat 500e just doesn't have room for a big enough battery to move it. Even though it's small, it's still, you know, it's so small that it's like not great. It's not optimal for in terms of putting a bigger battery in there. Well, here you have interchangeable batteries. So imagine, you know, you have maybe an extra one or an extra two of these, and, you know, you come home and you just pop it out and boom, you just instantly added, you know, or replenished 50% of your battery or something like that. So
it's pretty smart that it's inside the car too, in the climate controlled area, where that's one of the big concerns about battery swapping is that, you know, if you do it underneath the car where it can, you know, be wet and salty and all these different dirty, I like that idea of it just being in the car. So you just slide it out under the seat and pop it back in, and it at least be in a more sterile environment, you know?
Yeah, 100%. Like that's what really. I mean, yeah, at first you're like, okay, it's just like another concept car. It's whatever. But when they told me that, I'm like, that's really cool tech that no one that I'm aware of in the EV world has deployed yet. So I would be really hyped if that became a real thing. Yeah. There's kind of the side view.
That's crazy.
Yeah, see, this is the thing, like suicide doors on this. I don't. Yeah, I'm not in. Like, it's kind of cheesy.
Well, you probably need it if you wanted to have access to that extra battery thing.
I think the front door, I think, comes all the way back. So this isn't a full suicide door. It's like the kind of weird, cheesy things that trucks do, where you have like a half or a third back door kind of a deal. Here's like, two old white guys standing in front of it, whatever. Come on. Okay, there we go. Back to the car.
He's posing.
Yeah. So okay. So this was actually a surprise to me. Not obviously as big as the Sony one, but really cool. The Mercedes-Benz Avatar car. I don't know if you guys saw this. This is wild. It's like some wild, crazy concept from 50 years in the future or something. That there's no controls on the inside. It's bizarre. It's wild. It's I don't know. It's a promotional tool.
Looks like a water spa.
Yeah, it's
or some kind of water therapy.
Now these tires actually let it go sideways and diagonal in any direction you want.
Because I need that.
Well, I mean, I don't know. It's kind of cool. But yeah, in the Mercedes one, there's no steering wheel or anything. It's like this giant screen that just flows up into the front. You fully recline practically, and then have this like little, very creepy, odd, rubbery thing you put your hand on, and it like when you do that reads your pulse and like changes what's happening based on like biometrics. It's very Avatar-like.
Cool,
right?
They just skipped all of the things that will, matter, I guess, but it's fine.
Well, and, not to mention glass doors. So,
Well, if it's
so in order to control it, you need a brain implant.
Basically. Yeah.
And then you just plug in through a long ponytail.
Yeah.
To
the Matrix. Yeah, I think they called it a vision for like 2050. So it's literally, way out there. Okay, it breathes. So there's these little honeycomb things that like are added for cooling that come up and go down. It's like if you've seen the movie Avatar, it's like literally if you made a thing that tried to resemble the things in the movie.
The Na'vi.
It's bizarre, yeah.
Interesting.
And I still am so frustrated that they somehow didn't get sued by the people that made Fern Gully. But anyways, that's my other. That's one of the many beefs I have with James Cameron.
Oh wait, is there like?
It's a screen.
Is that a display?
Yeah, the whole thing. There's no controls whatsoever, other than that weird, creepy biometric thing, and then it's just like this giant screen that goes up. It's insane.
I mean, yeah,
it's
fun.
CES, it's what you do. And on the absolute opposite side of that spectrum, the most lame thing you could possibly do is what BMW did, which is not even So this is a BMW
Dude, wait,
i3.
I love this.
Yeah, this is a BMW i3 concept where they basically got rid of everything and made it like a single person taxi where you have a driver and then your own like little luxury thing with a footrest.
This is awesome.
Okay,
I'm dead serious.
I kind of almost like this.
I hate both of you guys right now.
If this was,
I like the little banker's light.
If I got picked up in an Uber and this was the option, I'd love that.
Yeah. Well,
Ben hates us, I guess.
No, I just hate that this is like, okay, you're coming to, okay, and they had, I didn't even actually see them because they were in a different hotel, but they had like the entire side of the hotel painted with this. Like they clearly spent a lot of money, did all this, and it's the same car.
Yeah.
Like
they just took a seat out basically.
You did nothing.
And put a footrest in it.
Yeah. I'm like, how lazy are you? And it's the worst EV. Like I hate everything about this.
It still looks like a BMW having an allergic reaction to something.
Yes.
Okay, let me be on the record saying I adore the i3 because it's like one of the most advanced manufactured vehicles where, I mean, it's a carbon fiber monocoque. It's recycled materials through and through. The wood they use in it is like grown locally at their plants. Like, I mean, they went
do appreciate
way
that,
above and beyond. People were assuming they actually lost money on every i3 just because they were trying to push the envelope so much. But this was, again, almost 10 years ago now or something, 8 years ago or something. And they had stopped doing that. It's almost like that set them back too far. And now it's just totally stale and stagnant. But I really appreciate the engineering and the effort behind the vehicle originally. But seeing them just rehash it out 8 years later by removing some seats is a little bit disappointing. But
I'm the disappointed dad, you know. I'm looking at BMW like, you guys have made beautiful, amazing, well-engineered cars forever. Mm-hmm. What is this nonsense? You know, especially now. Like, honestly, if you come out with an EV today and it doesn't have right at or above 300 miles of range, you're just not being competitive. It's just not. I mean, not to say that people won't buy it, but you're not. I don't feel you're either unable to actually, engineer it well enough to achieve those things, or you're just not trying hard enough. You know, that like the Porsche thing is an example of where, like, yeah, 200 miles of range for the Taycan. Yeah, it's a $250,000 track car. Who cares? You know, that's not like, to me, I'm all about like, let's get EVs in people's hands. And I feel like BMW could really do some good here. And that's why I'm just so frustrated and annoyed with this whole program, you know?
Well, we didn't really talk about the Taycan EPA range going down to, 201, like you just mentioned. The thing that really hurts for that to me is like, this could we're all pro, like, let's get some EVs out there. This will open up people's minds to how, an EV would actually fit in my life. I might actually see some serious advantages in my lifestyle by owning an EV and start them going down that process. And that's good for everyone. The problem is when a company comes out saying their car is going to get 260-mile range or whatever, and then all of a sudden it gets in the hands of the people that bought a $200,000 car and it goes 200 miles. They might swear off EVs for the next 5 years now and just be super disappointed because now their car is, or at least that's the rumor going around. Like, yeah, I went down to the Porsche dealership. I was thinking about getting one of these. And then they're just going to totally shut off to EVs and not even be open to like, oh, well, Tesla says it will go 330 miles, which, you know how it works. That probably means 220. And I just can't do that.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, I don't think we need Porsche to make an EV. I don't think it helps really at all push EVs out there because the volume of cars they sell is so tiny. It's really doesn't matter.
But every car company that has a loyal following like Porsche is probably one of the most. There's people that will buy a Porsche for the rest of their life, and those are the people that I think should be. Every loyalist like that. BMW, all these companies, Audi, should be making cars that at least get people thinking, when they go down to shop for a new car and they see the BMW 3 Series that's fully electric and they compare apples to apples with the other one, they're like, you know what, in my driving style, I might actually prefer the electric version of the BMW 3 Series if it was electric. And then, but if it's a horrible like implementation of it, it sets it back.
Yeah,
it really does.
Yeah, and if you look at the car company that is taking the biggest hit from the success of the Tesla Model 3, it's BMW. So, guys, I mean, maybe they're playing stealth mode, right? Maybe next year because they did an unveiling of some concept thing a year ago or something, and it was like, okay, whatever, I guess. Like, show me a real car. It was like the Avacar kind of thing. You're like, okay, yeah, cool, wild, look at that. But like no real genuine excitement because you're like, well, this ain't going anywhere. Maybe they're doing that, but because they're Tesla's just eating their lunch here in the U.S. And so I hope that everyone does an EV and they do it in earnest, in full attempt. Yeah, the Porsche one is a thing. Yeah, that does suck. I agree, but I don't think it's that big a deal because probably the person buying that is like, well, okay, I'll drive my GT3. I'll drive one of my 6 other cars today. I need to charge. I'll just take this whatever. So I don't know. Yeah, it's cool that they're doing it.
I just don't want people to have a sour experience and a buying experience, expectations of EVs, telling their friends that I bought this EV and it totally sucks. They said it was gonna have 265 miles of range. Now I can't even go 200 ever on it, and I baby it. Yeah, exactly. I mean, this has happened a few times now.
Yeah,
and it unfortunately, if the people did the research and followed through, they'd realize that, oh wow, Teslas actually are they're exceeding the EPA rating, like things like that, or the EPA rating is actually above what Tesla advertised, but they wouldn't see that. They would never know that because they might just be totally turned off too late.
There's an effect here too of where, when BMW and Mercedes and all these guys make electric cars and they really hype them up, and Audi and everybody, that it makes it okay. And all of a sudden, because when it's just this like kind of niche automaker from California that has no legacy or history of success, and it's like, where did this come from? I don't know what this is. Is Tesla a Chinese company? Like, people just not knowing anything and being completely, your trust and like, I'm going to buy a new car, should I get one, is probably extremely low because, but if Ford says, yo, we're doing this is for real, all of a sudden you're like, oh, well, if they're doing it, it must be legit, right? Because they wouldn't. So it makes it acceptable, or at least it makes it, you cross in the Innovator's Dilemma book, you cross that chasm from early adopters and, the super fans to the kind of mass markets. And then ironically, when your car completely falls on its face in terms of real world testing and stuff, what happens? Now people's mind is open to an electric car and they look at what's out there, and Tesla just sells more Model 3s is what happens. So it's a kind of a funny thing where I don't know. Like it's all speculative as to the impact here, but I agree with you. It does suck when, like, I want them all to succeed, right? I really want all of these cars to become real and for it to be good. And that's why I'm so hard on BMW and Audi and these guys, because I'm looking at it like, you guys make great cars. You could really crush in this space, but you just either you can't do it or you're not trying hard enough is what it comes down to for me.
Yeah.
And speaking of companies that I really want to make it, also at CES was this guy, Fisker.
The old Fisker.
And there's a whole history here. I won't get into it between Tesla and Fisker and all this. And, there's lots of stuff that has happened with this company. They came out with a thing called the Fisker Ocean. And it's a thing. It's a SUV. Let me see if I have a better shot of it here. Very Tesla similar design aesthetic, which, Fisker worked for Elon as doing some design for a while. But yeah, so well-designed car, compact SUV. I would, there's probably some dimensions out there, but just seeing it face-to-face, it seemed very Model X sized. If you guys are familiar, I've seen one of those
looks
around.
Kind of Range Rover size too.
Huh? What's that?
Like, kind of looks Range Rover-esque.
Yeah, the aesthetic is a little bit more boxy, which is probably, versus Tesla, like, well, excluding Cybertruck, Tesla is like ultra swoopy, like swooping arches of everything and all that. So Fisker's there. They were really off in the corner. I had a hard time finding them, honestly. But anyways, yeah, super cool. The big deal about the Fisker Ocean is that it has the price is really essentially for what you get. The price is incredible. So before incentives, it's $37,499. After incentives, it can get down to $29,000 because they don't have the tax credit's still alive and well for them, obviously. Or you can lease it from them for $379 a month. So pretty, not like a cheap car, but not an expensive lease of a car. They call it the world's most sustainable vehicle because everything is, reused, recycled materials, all that kind of stuff. And it has a full-length solar roof. Oh. Yeah. Now, I didn't see any specs.
At that price?
What's that?
At that price even?
Yeah.
Wow.
So the thing about that that's interesting is if you remember on the Fisker Karma, I forget whatever the first one was called. It basically they had a panel as well. Yeah, there you go. You can see if I can pause my video. I can't do that. You can see a shot of the solar kind of panel roof here. They did that on their sedan, and it basically was just enough to power the one display inside of the car. So it was basically just a gimmick. I didn't see any details, and the people there were like too busy to talk to me or whatever. But anyways, hopefully that's true. So they called it the world's most sustainable vehicle. we'll see. But okay, I like where you're going with that. They did have some details about the some other stuff. They had an 80 kilowatt hour pack, and
Whoa.
Yep. Now to me, the deal with that is an 80 kilowatt hour pack is pretty small, man. For this, because like your Model 3 has just about that same amount.
Right. But I mean, that's still getting up to there where it should easily be over 200.
200 miles. Yeah. Which
Yeah.
is, as I just stated, not trying.
All right.
like it needs to be close to 300 miles or more, I feel. Otherwise, anyways, yes. 80 kilowatt hour pack. We'll see on range. Get this. This blew my mind. Their plan stated, is to make more than 1 million of these and 2 other models that they're yet to unveil between 2022 and 2027. So in 5 years of production, they want to be able to make 1 million of these in the other 2 cars total.
Well, I'd love that. I hope they
Production will begin at the end of 2021 and deliveries in 2022. Again, more models coming, presumably a sedan or, I don't know, maybe a truck, something like that. So
do you know where these are being produced at?
What's that?
Do you know where these are being produced?
No. I did ask. They said that they are going to announce those details later. There's not some information they were ready to share, but the Fisker Ocean. This actually made kind of a big splash in the EV world. There were a lot of people talking about this.
The Ocean made a splash. We're just gonna let that go.
Thank you, Joe. Now there were other EVs there too, but I didn't really like. There was the Rivian truck, and then the Ford Mach-E, and a handful of others. A Nissan Leaf. You want to check one of those out. They were there. Nissan also had a new SUV kind of thing, but it seemed I don't know. Hopefully it comes out and it's a real thing. But yeah, the Fisker Ocean was interesting because we haven't really heard much from them in a while. So apparently this is what they've been working on.
Yeah, I got really confused about the Fisker because they, like you said, they had the Fisker Karma, and then didn't Karma become its own company or something?
Yeah, Karma is...
I was really confused by that.
Yeah, and I don't have it totally straight, but Karma is a Chinese automaker that bought basically the car and everything they had, bought the company essentially at the time, and now it's called the Karma Revero. Yeah, which is the same car though. I mean, as far as I could tell, just looking at it, like probably literally the exact same car, just change the badges out and here you go, bam, product launch or something. But yeah, and so that is actually a separate company that's trying to do a separate thing now. But Fisker was the guy who I think he's someone tell me if I'm wrong in the comments, which I don't need to prompt people for that, but I believe he was worked for Jaguar and designed some of their really famous cars, I don't know, 70s, 80s kind of a thing. And then later got hired by Tesla in the very early days to design the Model S. That didn't go so well, or him and Elon, something happened, whatever, and then he got let go. And then that's where Franz came in and basically started absolutely from scratch with the Model S, and then every car we've ever seen since, except maybe Cybertruck. I don't know. It didn't really have Franz's, swoopiness of that you're used to seeing. So
sweet.
The EVs at CES.
Awesome. Why don't they just make more EVs?
Why don't they?
Well, why don't they just do something?
Oh.
Why don't they just do this? Why don't they just do that?
Today's Why Don't They Just comes to you by canola oil. No. This came from Lucius Grant on the Twitters. It says, why don't Tesla? Why doesn't Tesla? Why don't, I don't know. Just set up their own energy supply company. They could begin in Nevada next to Gigafactory and become an energy distributor. It's cheaper for them to get set up because they own the equipment, same concept as Starlink and SpaceX. Use your own equipment and be the provider. That was the question. What do you guys think?
I think the answer is they are doing that, basically, just on a direct-to-consumer model where people are buying solar panels and a battery pack, and they're becoming their own power companies, essentially. And then they can sell that back to the power company. I just think they're kind of skipping, just like I think they're just kind of skip, like, why become another power company when you can just kind of skip that step and just sell it right to the people, et cetera, et cetera. That's my thought.
Yeah, I would go with, I mean, yeah, they kind of are, and I just pulled up here, another product that they launched this past year was the Megapack battery. And they've already had, the Power Pack is what it was called before, basically the same concept. We know about the Australia battery. There's a big one in PG&E in LA that's coming on. And yeah, they've got a lot in the commercial energy space. So I think the question would be more like sharpened as like, why don't they become a utility? So you can literally just like, instead of having SDG&E or PG&E or Con Edison or whatever, you can like just, have Tesla. I think there's so much more to that is not at all technical, but very political and regulatory type things that you would have to go through. And then also, I mean, how would you run the wire to the person's house? This is because you don't want every company being allowed to just run power lines wherever the hell they want. Right. So I think there's just so much more to it that probably from a business standpoint, it doesn't make any sense at all. It makes far more sense to just say, oh, yeah, you guys are the power company. You've already established all that. You want to, save money and be more, efficient and blah, 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 blah. We've got all those things. We'll be the supplier of that to you. And then you guys still be the power company doing your power company things.
And or again, like direct to consumer. Let the consumers become their own power plant.
Yeah.
At their own house.
Yeah.
You don't have to run lines to them, all that stuff, like.
Yeah, but I think the question is about them becoming a utility.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I fully agree, and obviously have that at my house, so yeah.
Yep.
Well, yeah, to me, the question is, are we moving more toward microgrids?
Yes.
With everybody having solar power on their homes, and it could be, like you just said, like it's all self-contained in a home. Or maybe one of these like Megapack things, maybe it didn't even have to be a big Megapack, could just like handle a community, like a small neighborhood. Like everybody on a street has solar panels and they can kind of feed that into this power pack.
Like a neighborhood.
And then should something go wrong, then they can, feed off of that.
Yeah,
I like that. Yeah. And in fact, there are changes coming. They're already happening around what's called a community choice something. I forget what they're called, but it's basically, so in California, we're doing a thing where, it'll be like a co-op for the energy, for the utility, basically. So like in San Diego, I don't know how far along it is, but that's a proposal, is basically to kick out the power company and force them to lease a co-op, like a literally like city owned or, member owned. As a resident of the city, you would own the utility company. And then you can have more control, in theory, around, the cost of energy. It's almost like you're taking more ownership of it, and in some ways that's probably better. But then also you're going to have to deal with the bad too, right? So I don't know how it'll go, but there's a lot of stuff happening in that regard. So interesting.
And just to be clear too, Cedar Falls, Iowa, which I talk about where I live, that our utility company is a municipality. So the citizens of Cedar Falls own the power company.
Right. Yeah. So is that called community choice, or is that something else?
It's just a municipality.
Got it. Yeah. Oh, community choice aggregation, it's called. It's a whole thing where you can, a CCA. Yeah. There you go. It is a municipality program. Yeah. So basically the same kind of idea. So then you can say as a community.
I was just way ahead of the trends, I guess, for once.
Well, and as a community, you can say, look, guys, we want green energy. We don't want, non-green energy or whatever. And so then you can say, cool, that's going to cost this. It's going to do this. You can like make those choices yourself instead of basically the power company just kind of, having you buy the thing and saying, this is what you're going to do, So you have more influence on that in theory. We'll see how it goes, but
cool.
We're getting there. Yeah, good question.
There you go. Yeah, thanks, Lucius.
Yeah, be sure and send them.
And there were actually there were a bunch of questions, and I wanted to thank everybody who responded, and we just kind of went with that one because we felt like we could talk about it.
Yeah,
we want to sound smart.
About it. I love the why don't they just is like one of my favorite things, just because they're good questions. There's a reason we see a similar question asked over and over, because some of these things are like seem obvious, and it's sometimes like, well, what is the reason, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. What I also liked was a lot of people would respond to the questions because some of them were things that I've actually personally done videos on my channel, and a couple of them were things that we've covered on here before. So people were just like linking to those in Twitter, and I was like, all right, cool.
There you go.
It's pretty cool.
Doing our job for us. I like it.
Yeah. So speaking of making videos, it sounds like you already kind of spoiled your video that you're working on this week for us, Joe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's Tess. It's on Tess. No, I got super lucky because like I'm sitting here working on it, and then this thing comes. I was like, Tess finds an Earth-sized planet, and it's like, welcome to my video. So yeah,
it's awesome.
There you go.
What about you, Tim?
I'm back to working on the pollution video, trying to maybe get that shot up here soon before. Well, I need to have the research stuff done before we go down to Fully Charged Live, because I'm doing a speech about how much rockets pollute. So I need to have my numbers all solidified. Nice. And I'm still just working on really, it's a matter of like just being pedantic. I just don't want to be wrong, you know? So I'm really trying to figure that out. And now I'm struggling even like, I realize that I've been intermixing just the terms pollution, like toxic, and like ozone depleting. You know, there's totally a difference between a greenhouse gas, something that is bad for the ozone layer, and something that's like general pollution. Like there's just, and I've just been using those terms a little too interchangeably, and I realize I really, really need to clarify this and not just be dumb about it. You know, so. I'm trying to really tweak it so that I'm being correct. So I'm working on that again and preparing for the in-flight abort test. So it'll be fun.
Good times.
Yeah. Cool. What about you, Ben?
So yeah, just got back from CES. Boy, are my arms tired, and
but you drove.
Still, with my arms, I just take a lot of energy to up.
Shut up.
Anyways. So I have a video. It should be going out before this one, before the podcast posts, I think, hopefully, about basically the most important EV I saw at CES. So people might have seen that by the time they see this. So maybe the question should be what's coming out after that. I talk about Cybertruck towing. I've got a video on that I did, and I'm working on the graphics, so still pulling that together. And then also I did a review of that little roadie thing. Did I mention that to you guys last time? About it's a way to wirelessly watch and scrub through your Sentry mode and dashcam footage.
Oh yeah.
So I did a review of that. I drove up to LA, went to a football game, had my car in the parking lot, came back, did the thing. So been messing with that, and so I've got a review of that coming out, and lots of other stuff in the works. So it's gonna be a busy month, and then I need a vacation. I'm done. Maybe I'll go to Dallas.
Yeah, I'm playing catch up from being off in December. From taking some time
weird.
off then.
It's hard.
How do you do that? December's like the busiest month for YouTubers.
Well, my wife's a teacher, so that's like one of the few times of the year that she actually has some time off. So
good for you.
I have to keep my marriage together.
Good on you. Good on you.
Good on you.
Yeah, it's working so far.
We'll see next year how it's going.
Yeah, there's plenty of time for me to screw this up.
We did another episode. We all survived.
We probably should pimp. You mentioned Fully Charged a minute ago. Like we all are going to be Fully Charged Live, Austin, December. You got me saying February 1st and 2nd.
Mm-hmm.
Is it just fullychargedlive.com, or do you know?
I think it's like fullycharged.show or something. We'll put a link in the description. But if you just search Fully Charged Live Austin. Because they've got one in May in the UK as well, but that's not the one that we're going to be at.
Yeah. Not all of us, at least.
I'll be there. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe come see us in Austin if you're in the area or just really into EVs and want to fly and see a cool show. I think it'll be a pretty fun time.
Yeah.
And we'll see you either in Austin or in our
ludicrous future. Austin. Hey, thanks so much for listening. If you like what we do and you want to kind of help get it out there, you can give us a nice review on any of your podcast streaming platforms, whichever one you use. That kind of helps get it out there. Also, we do have a Patreon set up, so you can join us there at patreon.com/ourludicrousfuture. You can get your name in the credits. Made a whole other group of like-minded people. It's a lot of fun. We do appreciate it. We'll see you there. Thanks.